The dust never settled on Earth anymore. Commander Kesvorthek pulled her breathing mask tighter as another gust of poisoned wind swept across the dead landscape. Her scaled hands gripped the scanner as she watched the numbers dance across its screen. Something was wrong with the readings. Very wrong. "Commander, the energy signatures are getting stronger," called out Dr. Mallon from behind her. The young scientist's voice cracked with excitement through his unit. "These readings don't match anything in our databases." Kes turned her reptilian head toward the ruins of what the old human records called Colorado. 75 years had passed since the Zephyrian Empire crushed the humans and turned their blue world into this wasteland. The Galactic Preservation Council had sent her team to catalog whatever remained of human civilization before the planet became completely lifeless. It should have been simple work. Humans had been a young species, barely 200 years into space travel when the Zephyrians found them. Their technology was basic, their weapons were weak. Their cities fell in days. The galaxy had moved on, treating the human extinction as just another footnote in the long history of failed species. But these energy readings told a different story. "How deep are we scanning?" Kes asked, her forked tongue tasting the bitter air. 12 kilometers down, Commander. The signals are coming from much deeper than that. Dr. Mallon's equipment beeped steadily as he adjusted the settings. "Whatever is down there, it's been hidden for a very long time." Kes felt her crest rise slightly, a sign of unease among her people. The Preservation Council had chosen Earth for this mission because it was supposed to be safe. Dead worlds held no surprises. Dead civilizations left only ruins and artifacts. They did not leave active energy sources buried beneath mountains. "Begin excavation protocols," she ordered. "I want to know what the humans were hiding." The excavation took 3 days. Kes watched as her team's machines cut through layers of rock and dirt that had built up over countless years. The human city above had been completely destroyed, its metal and concrete ground to dust by Zephyrian bombardment. But as they dug deeper, older structures began to appear. These were not human buildings. The architecture was wrong. The materials were unknown. The construction methods defied explanation. "Commander, you need to see this." Dr. Mallon's voice held a note of fear that made Kes's blood run cold. She climbed down into the excavation site, her clawed feet finding purchase on the alien metal that formed the walls. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The air down here was different too, clean, breathable, as if the structure had its own atmosphere. "The dating scans are impossible," Dr. Mallon sighed, his eyes wide behind his protective goggles. "This structure is over 50,000 years old." "But Commander, that's impossible. Humans only achieved spaceflight 200 years ago. They only discovered their solar system had other planets 500 years ago." Kes ran her scanner along the smooth walls. The metal felt warm under her touch, and she could swear she felt a slight vibration, like a heartbeat deep in the structure. "What else have you found?" "Corridors. Lots of them. They extend in all directions, going deeper than our equipment can scan. And, Commander, we're picking up similar structures all across the planet. Under every continent. Under the oceans. It's like the entire planet was hollowed out and filled with these things." A chill ran down Kes's spine. The implications were staggering. If humans had possessed this technology 50,000 years ago, why had they pretended to be a primitive species? Why had they allowed themselves to be conquered? "Have you found any way inside?" Dr. Mallon led her deeper into the excavation. At the far end, they had uncovered what looked like a doorway. It was perfectly smooth, with no visible controls or mechanisms. Strange symbols covered its surface, flowing and shifting like living things. "We've tried everything," Dr. Mallon said. "Heat, cold, electromagnetic pulses, sound waves. Nothing works. It's like the door is waiting for something specific." Kes approached the door carefully. As she got closer, the symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. Her scanner started beeping frantically. "Commander, the energy readings are spiking." Dr. Malin warned, but Kess was transfixed by the symbols. They were changing, rearranging themselves into new patterns. And somehow, impossibly, she could understand them. Warning. Unauthorized access detected, scanning for human DNA signatures. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking in perfect galactic standard. Kess jumped back, but it was too late. A beam of light swept over her, and she felt something probe her mind with gentle but irresistible force. Non-human entity detected. Threat assessment in progress. "Commander, we should leave," Dr. Malin whispered. But his voice seemed to come from very far away. The light faded, and the voice spoke again. This time it sounded almost sad. "Human extinction confirmed. Zephyrian invasion protocols successful. Activating emergency measures, beginning awakening sequence." The door dissolved like mist, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness. Air rushed out from the opening, carrying with it the scent of growing things and the hum of vast machinery coming to life. Deep in the earth, lights began to flicker on. Miles below their feet, something immense stirred from a sleep that had lasted for thousands of years. And across the dead surface of Earth, in hidden places buried beneath every major city, similar awakenings began. Kess stood at the threshold, her scanner detecting massive power surges from all across the planet. Whatever the humans had built down here, it was waking up. And she had the terrible feeling that her people had made a very serious mistake about what humanity had really been. Behind her, Dr. Malin was frantically trying to contact their ship in orbit, but all communications were being blocked by something that was broadcasting from deep underground. The signal was old, older than any civilization in the galaxy, but the message was clear. The sleepers were awakening Dot as if in response to her thoughts. The voice spoke one more time, echoing from the depths of the ancient structure. "Emergency protocols activated. Beginning Phase 1 of the Great Awakening. All units prepare for deployment. The watch is ended." The Guardians return. Kess realized with growing horror that they had not discovered a dead civilization's ruins. They had found something that had been waiting and watching. Waiting for the right moment to reveal that humanity's destruction had not been an ending. It had been a beginning. The ground shook beneath Commander Kess's feet as she stumbled back from the open doorway. Deep underground, machinery that had been silent for thousands of years rumbled to life. The vibrations traveled up through the rock and metal, making her teeth chatter. "Commander, we're getting reports from teams all over the planet," Dr. Malin shouted over the growing noise. His communication device crackled with panicked voices from dig sites across Earth. "Similar structures are activating everywhere. Beijing, London, New York, Moscow. Every major human city had something buried beneath it." Kess watched in amazement as lights began flowing along the walls of the ancient corridor like liquid fire. The air flowing from the depths smelled of ozone and something else, something alive. "We need to get back to the ship," she said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew it was too late. Whatever they had awakened was already beyond their control. A new sound echoed from the depths, footsteps, slow and measured, coming closer. "Commander," Dr. Malin whispered. "Something's coming up." The footsteps grew louder. Then a figure emerged from the darkness of the corridor. It walked upright on two legs like a human, but it was clearly not one of the dead humans they had expected. To find, the figure was tall and thin, wearing a robe that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Its face was human-like but wrong somehow. The skin was too pale, the eyes too bright, and when it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that no human throat should be able to produce. "Greetings, children of the outer worlds," it said imperfect. "Galactic Standard, I am Caretaker Unit 77 Alpha. I have been waiting a very long time to meet you." Kess found her voice. "You're human?" The figure tilted its head in a way that reminded her of a curious bird. "I was human, once. Long ago, before the Great Concealment, before we went to sleep." It stepped closer, and Kess could see that its movements were too smooth, too perfect. "You have done well, little ones. Your species have grown and flourished just as we hoped they would." "Our species?" Dr. Malin stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. What do you mean? The Zephyrians, the Alterans, the hegemony worlds, all the proud civilizations that have risen since we went into hiding? The caretaker's smile was gentle but somehow terrible. You have done exactly what we needed you to do. You have grown strong while appearing weak. You have explored the galaxy while we slept. You have been our eyes and ears in the outer darkness. Kes felt her world shifting beneath her feet. You've been watching us all this time? Not watching, guiding, protecting, preparing. The caretaker gestured to the awakening machinery around them. Every war you fought, every alliance you made, every technological breakthrough you achieved was part of the pattern we set in motion 50,000 years ago. More figures began emerging from the depths. Some looked almost human, others had changed in ways that hurt to look at directly. They moved with the same eerie perfection as the first caretaker, and all of them had the same ancient eyes. But the humans, Dr. Mallon said weakly, they were primitive. They barely had space travel. The Zephyrians destroyed them easily. The caretaker that had spoken first laughed, and the sound echoed strangely in the chamber. The surface humans, yes. Our children. Our beautiful, innocent children who never knew what they truly were. Its expression grew sad. We gave them simple lives on the surface while we slept below. They lived and loved and died believing they were alone in the universe. It was the kindest gift we could give them. But why? Kes demanded. Why hide? Why pretend to be weak? Because the enemy was coming back. The voice that answered came from deeper in the corridor. Another figure approached, this one different from the others. Where the caretakers moved like living machines, this new arrival walked like a person who had once been entirely human and remembered what that felt like. I am Archive Keeper Thane, the figure said, and I will show you why we had to hide. Thane raised one hand, and the air in front of them shimmered. Images formed in the space between them, three-dimensional and painfully real. Kes saw a star. Systems burning. Not destroyed by weapons, but consumed by something that ate light itself. Entire fleets of ships simply vanishing as waves of darkness swept over them. Planets stripped of all energy, left as cold, dead rocks drifting in space. The Devourers, Thane said simply. They came to our galaxy 60,000 years ago. They ate everything, every star, every planet, every living thing. We fought them for 10,000 years with all our technology, all our weapons, all our courage, and we lost. The images shifted, showing vast ships fleeing through space, carrying the last survivors of 100 different species. Only a few escaped. We came here, to this empty galaxy, carrying the seeds of new civilizations. But we knew the Devourers would follow eventually. They always follow. They consume one galaxy and then move to the next. So you prepared, Kes said, beginning to understand. We prepared. We scattered ourselves across 1,000 worlds and went to sleep, leaving only automated systems to watch and wait. We seeded this galaxy with new life, new species that could grow and develop without knowing the danger that was coming. And when the first scouts arrived, we would be ready. Dr. Mallon looked confused. Scouts? Archive Keeper Thane nodded grimly. The Zephyrians. They thought they were conquering primitives, building an empire. They never realized they were working for something else. Something that whispered in their leaders' dreams and guided their expansion across the galaxy. The truth hit Kes like a physical blow. The Zephyrians were controlled by these Devourers? Not controlled, influenced, prepared. The Devourers needed to know which species were strong, which were weak, which were worth consuming, and which were not. The Zephyrian Empire served as their survey team. And the human invasion? The signal we were waiting for. When the surface humans were destroyed, it meant the Devourers had learned all they needed to know about this galaxy. It was time for us to wake up. Around them, the ancient machinery continued to hum and vibrate. Lights flowed along conduits that disappeared into the depths of the earth. And from far below, new sounds were rising. The sound of vast engines starting up. The sound of weapon systems coming online. The sound of something immense preparing to move. What happens now? Kes asked, Though she was afraid of the answer, Thane smiled, and for a moment he looked almost human. Now we do what we came here to do 50,000 years ago. We protect this galaxy and all the beautiful species that have grown up in it. We fight the Devourers one more time, and if you lose, then at least this time we will not fight alone. The ground shook again, more violently than before. But this time it was not the machinery awakening. This time it was something much larger moving deep beneath the surface of the world. The fleet is rising, Thane said quietly. After 50 millennia of sleep, the Guardians are coming home. High above them, the surface of Earth began to crack open like an eggshell, revealing the lights of incredible machines that had been waiting in the darkness for longer than any living being could remember. The wait was over. The real war was about to begin. The first ship broke through the surface of Earth like a whale rising from deep water. Commander Kess watched in stunned silence as massive sections of the planet's crust split apart, revealing something that should not have been possible. The ship was enormous, larger than any space station she had ever seen. Its hull gleamed with a dark metal that seemed to bend light around it, and along its surface, patterns of energy flowed like veins in a living creature. As it rose higher, she could see that it was not built like any ship in the galaxy. It was grown by the ancient fires, Dr. Malin whispered beside her. How big is that thing? Archive Keeper Thane stood with them at the edge of the excavation, sight, watching his people's fleet emerge from their long sleep. The Eternal Dawn, she is 12 kilometers from nose to tail, and she is one of the smaller vessels. As if to prove his point, another section of Earth's surface began to crack open 50 kilometers to the north. This time, what emerged was even larger. The new ship seemed to stretch on forever, its hull disappearing into the distance. Lights moved along its surface like slow lightning, and the air around it shimmered with barely contained energy. How many? Kess asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. 647 ships of various sizes, Thane replied calmly. We have been building them for 50,000 years. Growing them might be a better word. They are as much alive as they are machine. More ships were rising now. All across the planet, the dead surface of Earth cracked and split as the hidden fleet emerged. Some ships were sleek and fast-looking, others were massive and blocky like moving fortresses. But all of them shared the same organic appearance, as if they had been carved from living metal and given souls. The technology, Dr. Malin said, his voice filled with wonder and fear, this is beyond anything we know, beyond anything in the galaxy. It should be, said a new voice behind them. We have had a very long time to improve it. Kess turned to see another figure approaching. This one was different from the caretakers and archive keepers they had met. Where the others had changed into something not quite human. This woman looked almost normal, almost. Her hair was silver white despite her young face, and her eyes held depths that spoke of ages beyond counting. I am Admiral Sarah Chun, the woman said, and I have been asleep for a very long time. Admiral? Kess found her voice. You command this fleet? Sarah nodded, her gaze fixed on the ships rising from the earth. I commanded it before we went to sleep. I will command it again now that we have awakened. She looked at Kess with eyes that had seen the death of galaxies. Tell me, little one, how many species live in this galaxy now? Thousands, Kess replied. The Galactic Council represents over 3,000 different civilizations. Good, that is more than we dared hope for. Sarah's expression grew grave. They will need to be warned. The enemy comes, and this time they bring more than scouts. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding from Dr. Malin's equipment. His face went pale as he read the displays. Commander, we're getting reports from the Outer Rim, ships, hundreds of them, but they're not like anything in our databases. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, they glowed with a faint inner light. The deep sensors confirm it. They have begun their approach. We have perhaps 6 months before the first wave reaches the outer systems. First wave? Kess felt cold despite the warm air rising from the awakening ships. The Devourers do not attack all at once, Sarah explained. They send forward elements first. Ships that look like technology, crewed by beings that used to be alive. These prepare the way for what comes after. Around them, the human fleet continued to rise from the earth. The air filled with the sound of massive engines coming online and weapon systems charging. But there was something else in the sound too. Something that reminded Kess of singing. Are your ships alive? She asked. Sarah smiled, and for a moment she looked almost happy. In a way, yes. We learned long ago that the best way to fight something that consumes life is to become something that cannot be easily consumed. Our ships think, they feel. They make their own decisions in battle, and they remember everyone who dies. The largest ship Kess had seen yet was now fully clear of the surface. It hung in the air like a small moon, its surface covered with structures that looked more like a city than a warship. Gardens could be seen through transparent sections, and waterfalls flowed down its sides into space. That is the heart of Terra, Sarah said, noticing Kess's stare. She carries 2 million souls in biostasis, civilians from our original worlds. Artists, teachers, children, the future we are fighting to protect. 2 million people have been sleeping under Earth this whole time? Not just under Earth, under Mars, under the moons of Jupiter, scattered through the asteroid belt and the outer planets. We built our civilization in the spaces between spaces, in the places no one thought to look. Sarah gestured to the rising fleet. Your people saw a dead system with a single inhabited world. We saw a fortress that could hide an entire civilization. More alarms sounded from Dr. Mallon's equipment. This time his hands shook as he read the displays. Admiral, the ships on the rim, they're not attacking the colonies. They're just taking them. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever seen. It's like they're draining the life out of entire worlds. Sarah nodded grimly. That is what they do. They consume everything. All energy, all matter, all information. They leave nothing behind but empty space and cold atoms. She looked up at her awakening fleet. But this time they face something they have never encountered before. What's that? Kess asked. A species that refuses to die? The nearest ship, the Eternal Dawn, was now hovering just above them. A beam of light descended from its hull, and Sarah stepped into it without hesitation. As the light lifted her toward her ship, she called down to them. Tell your people to prepare for war, but do not tell them to despair. We have fought this enemy before, and we learned from our defeat. This time we are ready. She paused in the beam of light, looking down at Kess with ancient eyes. And this time we are not alone. The light carried her up into the ship, and moments later the massive vessel began to move. Not with the mechanical thrust of normal spacecraft, but with the fluid grace of something alive. It rose higher into the sky, joined by dozens of other ships of every size and shape. Across the galaxy, long-range sensors detected the impossible. A dead world was launching a fleet that rivaled the combined navies of every known civilization. Ships that moved like living things and sang as they flew toward the outer rim where ancient enemies waited in the dark. But the most impossible thing of all was the message that went out on all frequencies, broadcast in every known language and several that were not known at all. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Fleet. To all civilizations of this galaxy, we bring greetings from humanity. We have been your silent guardians for 50,000 years. Now the time for silence is over. The message continued. But Kess was no longer listening. She was watching the ships as they formed up in perfect formations above the ruined Earth, ships that had waited in darkness for longer than her entire species had existed. Ships crewed by beings who had seen the death of one galaxy and refused to let it happen to another. The war for everything was about to begin. Commander Kess stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the galaxy through eyes that had seen too much in the past 3 days. The ship's walls were transparent here, showing the vast emptiness of space around them. But it was not empty anymore. Hundreds of human ships moved in perfect formation. their living hulls singing to each other in harmonies that made her soul ache. Admiral Sarah Chun sat in what looked less like a command chair and more like a throne grown from living metal. Her silver hair flowed around her as data streams of pure light connected her mind directly to the ship's consciousness. When she spoke, her voice echoed with the wisdom of ages. "Tell me about your people, Commander Kess. Tell me about the galaxy we protected while we slept." Kess had been brought aboard as a liaison between the human fleet and the Galactic Council. 3 days ago, she had been an archaeologist studying dead ruins. Now she was in the middle of something that would reshape everything she thought she knew about the universe. "The Zephyrian Empire controls the Outer Rim sectors," she began. "They have been expanding for 300 years, conquering weaker species and forcing them into their war machine. The Altarian Federation controls the core worlds, focusing on trade and technology. The hegemony manages the mid-rim, keeping peace between smaller civilizations. And they all believe they are the masters of this galaxy," Sarah said. It was not a question. "Yes, the Council of Species thinks we have built the greatest civilization in galactic history. We have peace treaties, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. We thought we had solved the problems that destroyed ancient civilizations." Sarah smiled sadly. "Show her," she said to the ship. The walls around them changed, becoming windows into the past. Kess gasped as she saw the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago. Thousands of species living in harmony. Cities that spanned entire star systems. Technology that turned matter into energy and back again with the ease of thought. "This was our first galaxy," Sarah explained. "We called it the Garden. Over 2 million species lived there, and we had achieved something close to paradise. No war, no hunger, no want. We thought we had reached the end of history." The images shifted, showing something dark approaching from the space between galaxies. It moved like living shadow, consuming light itself as it came. The Devourers arrived without warning. At first, we thought they were just another species seeking to join the garden. We sent ambassadors to greet them. Sarah's voice grew hard. The ambassadors never came back. Neither did the worlds they visited. Kess watched in horror as the darkness spread across the galaxy in the vision. Entire star systems simply vanished, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Fleets of ships tried to fight, but their weapons passed through the enemy like they were attacking shadows. "What are they?" Kess whispered. "We never truly learned. They exist partially outside normal space and time. They feed on organized energy, on life itself, on the patterns that make matter into something more than just atoms floating in space. They turn complexity back into simplicity, order back into chaos." The visions showed massive evacuation fleets fleeing the dying galaxy. Ships carrying the survivors of 100 different species, all racing toward the dark space between galaxies. "Only 1 in 1,000 escaped," Sarah continued. "We ran to this galaxy because it was young and mostly empty. We brought with us the genetic codes and cultural memories of every species that had died, and we began to plan." "You recreated them," Kess realized. "The species in this galaxy, you made us. We guided your evolution, yes. We seeded worlds with the right conditions for life to develop. We nudged primitive species in the right directions. We watched as you grew into the civilizations we remembered losing." Sarah gestured to the transparent walls. "Every species in this galaxy is a child of something that died in the garden, including yours." The revelation hit Kess like a physical blow. The Preservation Council, the Galactic Federation, all of it. All of it. "We gave you back your histories, your cultures, your technologies, but we let you develop them naturally so you would be strong in ways we had not been. And we prepared for the day when the Devourers would follow us here." New images appeared in the walls. Hidden human installations scattered throughout the galaxy. Monitoring stations disguised as asteroids. Weapon platforms hidden in nebulae. Manufacturing plants buried in the hearts of dead worlds. For 50,000 years we built in secret. We watched every war you fought and learned from your tactics. We studied every breakthrough you made and improved on your designs. We prepared for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But the surface humans, Kes said. Why did you let them stay primitive? Why did you let them die? Sarah's expression grew infinitely sad. Because they chose to live. Our ancestors, the original humans who came from the garden, they were tired of war and hiding and preparation. They wanted to experience life as it was meant to be lived. Simple, honest, mortal. The walls showed images of human families on Earth's surface, children playing in fields, artists creating beauty for its own sake, people falling in love and growing old together. We offered them immortality and they chose to remain human. We offered them incredible technology and they chose to work with their hands. We offered them knowledge of the galaxy and they chose to believe they were alone among the stars. Sarah wiped away a tear that glowed with inner light. They were the most beautiful thing we ever protected. And you let the Zephyrians destroy them. We let them live until the signal came. When the Zephyrians invaded Earth, it meant the Devourers had sent their scouts ahead to map the galaxy. It meant the real invasion was coming. Our surface families knew what their deaths would mean. They faced it with courage. Around them, the human fleet continued its journey toward the outer rim where the enemy waited. But now Kes could see things she had missed before. The ships were not just vessels. They were arcs carrying the memories and souls of entire civilizations. They were libraries containing the knowledge of 1,000,000 dead worlds. They were gardens preserving the beauty that had been lost. This is why you never revealed yourselves, Kes said. Why you stayed hidden even when species in this galaxy suffered and died in wars. We could not risk exposing ourselves before. The Devourers came. Every species that died in your wars we remembered. Every culture that was lost we preserved. When this war is over, they will all be reborn. But first we must ensure there is a galaxy left for them to inherit. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Not the harsh mechanical alarms Kes was used to, but harmonious tones that somehow conveyed urgency without causing panic. Admiral, the ship's voice spoke directly into their minds. We are detecting massive spatial distortions at the galaxy's edge. The enemy fleet is larger than projected. Sarah stood, and as she did, her appearance began to change. Her skin took on a metallic sheen, her eyes became pools of starlight, and her hair moved as if she were underwater. She was becoming something. More than human. How much larger? She asked. Approximately 50 times our initial estimates. They are bringing not just their forward fleets, but their entire civilization. They intend to consume this galaxy completely. Sarah nodded as if she had expected this. Then we show them what 50,000 years of preparation has accomplished. Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 2 deployment. She turned to Kes, and her transformed features held both terrible beauty and infinite determination. Now you will see why humanity chose to become something more than mortal. The real war begins. The enemy came like a wave of living darkness. Commander Kes watched from the bridge of the eternal dawn as the Devourers poured into the galaxy at the edge of known space. They were not ships in any sense she understood. They were holes in reality itself, spaces where light went to die and matter forgot how to exist. How many? Admiral Sarah Chun asked, her transformed body now more energy than flesh as she connected directly with the ship's consciousness. Beyond counting, the ship replied in its harmonic voice. They stretch across 17 star systems. Admiral, they have brought their breeding worlds with them. This is not just an invasion. They plan to make this galaxy their new home. Sarah nodded, her starlight eyes reflecting calculations that would have burned out a normal mind. Around them, the human fleet spread out in formations that defied geometry. Ships moved through dimensions that did not quite exist, appearing and disappearing, as they prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of all life. Signal all Council fleets, Sarah ordered. Tell them to fall back to the secondary defense line. They are not equipped for what comes next. On the viewing screens, Kes could see the fleets of her own people retreating in panic. Zephyrian dreadnoughts that had conquered hundreds of worlds fled like children before the advancing darkness. Altarian science vessels that had unlocked the secrets of matter and energy powered down their weapons in despair. The combined might of galactic civilization was less than nothing against what was coming. "Why aren't we running?" Kess asked, surprised by how calm her own voice sounded. "Because we have nowhere to run to," Sarah replied. "And because this time we fight as what we have become." The first contact happened at the edge of the Rigel system. A devourer entity larger than a small moon swept toward a human patrol ship called the Dancing Light. Kess expected to see the patrol ship destroyed instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The Dancing Light began to sing. The sound came through space itself, a harmony that made reality vibrate in frequencies that had no name. As the ship sang, its hull began to glow with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. And when the devourer touched it, the creature of darkness screamed. "Phase weapons," Sarah explained calmly. "We learn to fight things that exist partially outside normal space by becoming partially outside it ourselves. Our ships can hurt them because our ships are no longer entirely real." More human ships joined the song. The harmonies built on each other, creating music that was also mathematics, poetry that was also physics. Where the song touched the devourers, they burned with cold fire and pulled back in pain, but there were so many of them. "Admiral," the ship warned, "enemy reinforcements arriving. They are adapting to our phase frequencies." Sarah smiled, and her expression was terrible and beautiful at the same time. "Then we show them what 50,000 years of grief can accomplish. All ships begin the Great Awakening." Across the human fleet, something extraordinary happened. The ships began to change. Hulls that had looked like metal revealed themselves to be something far stranger, living circuits of pure thought. Engines that burned memories instead of fuel. Weapons that fired concentrated will instead of energy. The Dancing Light was no longer just a ship. It was a poem written in starfire, a song given form and purpose. It moved through space like a living thought, striking at the devourers with weapons that attacked not their bodies but their very existence. "What are you?" Kess whispered, staring at Sarah in wonder and terror. "We are what becomes of love when it refuses to die," Sarah replied. "What becomes of hope when it has nothing left to lose? We are the memory of every species that was devoured, every world that was consumed, every child that never got to grow up. We are 50,000 years of determined grief made manifest." The battle spread across dozens of star systems. Human ships that had hidden their true nature revealed themselves to be impossible things. Living mathematics that could rewrite the laws of physics. Crystallized time that could attack enemies in the past and future simultaneously. Concentrated evolution that adapted to every enemy tactic faster than thought, but the devourers adapted too. They began to merge together, forming entities so vast they had their own gravity. They created zones of anti-existence where nothing could survive. They reached through dimensions that did not belong in this universe and pulled out weapons made of crystallized entropy. "We're losing ships," the Eternal Dawn reported. "The heart of Terra is badly damaged. The singing garden has gone silent." Sarah closed her eyes, and for a moment she looked almost human again. "Connect me to Admiral Zhao on the Undying Memory. Tell him to begin the Phoenix Protocol." "Admiral," the ship's voice carried a note of protest that sounded almost like tears. "The Phoenix Protocol will destroy half our fleet and save the galaxy. Do it." Across the battlefield, human ships began to glow with internal fire. Not the cold light of their phase weapons, but the warm radiance of stars being born. They were preparing to sacrifice themselves in ways that would echo through eternity. "Sarah," Kess said, using the Admiral's first name without thinking. "What is the Phoenix Protocol?" "When a human ship dies in this kind of battle, it does not simply explode," Sarah explained. "It becomes a seed that will grow into something new when the fighting is over. We learn to make death itself into a weapon." The first ship to activate the protocol was a small courier vessel called the Gentle Rain, as devourer entities swarmed around it. The ship began to collapse inward. But instead of imploding, it became something else. A point of pure creation that expanded outward turning empty space into a garden of possibilities. Where the gentle rain had died, new matter began to form. Not just atoms and molecules, but organized patterns of existence that actively resisted the devourer's attempts to consume them. Life that was also logic, beauty that was also mathematics. Hope given physical form. More ships followed. Each death created a new pocket of resistant reality, spaces where the devourers could not feed. The tide of battle began to turn as the enemy found themselves fighting not just ships and weapons, but the fundamental forces of creation itself. "Now," Sarah whispered, and the word carried across the entire fleet simultaneously. The remaining human ships began their final transformation. They had been hiding their true nature for 50,000 years, pretending to be mere technology when they were actually something far more profound. Now they revealed themselves as what they truly were, living embodiments of every good thing that had ever existed. Every act of love, every moment of beauty, every sacrifice made for others. They were the concentrated essence of what made existence worth preserving, given form and will and the power to fight. The battle lasted 3 days and forever. When it was over, the devourers were not destroyed. They could not be destroyed. But they were changed. The humanity they had tried to consume had infected them with something they had never encountered before, the ability to choose. For the first time in their existence, some of the devourers chose not to consume. They chose instead to create, to protect, to remember what they had taken and try to give something back. The war was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Sarah stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, her form slowly returning to something recognizably human. Around them, the surviving ships sang lullabies to heal the wounded space where the battle had been fought. "It's finished?" Kes asked. "This part is," Sarah replied. "Now comes the harder task, rebuilding, growing, teaching the galaxy what we learned about what it means to refuse to surrender." She looked out at the stars where human ships were already beginning the work of restoration, planting seeds of new worlds, awakening the stored memories of extinct species, preparing to fulfill the promise they had made 50,000 years ago. "The watch continues," Sarah said quietly. "It always continues, but now we do not keep it alone." In the depths of space, where the fiercest of fighting had taken place, something new was growing. A garden made of starlight and determination, where every species that had ever lived could flourish again, where the dead could be reborn and the lost could be found. Humanity had kept its promise. The galaxy was safe. And somewhere in the singing depths of space, the real work of building paradise began again.